Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we're bringing back Ado Kukic. Otto, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing well. I just realized that did I get your name right? Did I say your last name
You
right?
did.
Yes.
You did.
Okay. There's only like one area of Europe where I feel confident in the pronunciation, and it's like the Croatia, Slovenia, that like that Cyrillic kind of area. And
Uh-huh.
it fits the way that I speak. I like to I'm kind of a mumbler, and I feel like we were in Croatia or something, and I was learning some of the local language, and everybody's like, "Your pronunciation is very good," and I was like, "Great, mumbling works here."
I love that. Yeah, it's like my last name, like the C at the end technically should have the little like tilde above it for like the ch
Mm.
sound. But since the English alphabet doesn't have it, it's just a C, so a lot of people are always like, cookie, cookits, blah blah blah. But
Cookie. That's a good Americanization of it. Like, yeah, I'm Otto Cookie.
yep.
All right, so welcome back to the show. It's good to have you back. But for folks who aren't familiar with you and your work, do you want to give us a bit of an update on who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ado Kukic. Currently, I am the Director of Developer Advocacy at a company called Sourcegraph. And over the last decade, I've worked at DigitalOcean, MongoDB, Auth0. So I've kind of been on the full spectrum of SaaS, large enterprises, small startups, and in that entire career, my career has been focused around education, helping developers learn more about identity and access management, learn about databases, and now with Sourcegraph, learning, teaching developers how to search their code and also helping them become much more productive with AI and AI coding assistance.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so and this is something that I'm interested in digging a little deeper here because AI coding assistants are one of those things that I people love them, right? Like there's a lot of conversation about them, and people seem to use them in different ways. And to be completely honest, I have used them very sparingly. And my reasoning is I have a few reasons that I haven't gotten deep into coding assistants. And I mean, first and foremost, I always feel weird when somebody else writes code on my behalf. And so the one of the original iterations that I saw of these coding assistants is that it would just do like type ahead for you, and it would try to auto complete your code. And I mean, partially because I do a lot of my coding on stream, and that was very distracting, and partially because sometimes it would do stuff that looked almost right, and then when I would actually try to use it, it wouldn't work, right? And so that kind of made me nervous about it. But then I saw some other ways where it was sort of like pair programming, and you would kind of chat to it, and it would know things about your code, and I thought that was really interesting. But I, for whatever reason, didn't really like dig deeply into that. Just kind of went on my own AI free way, and I feel like it's time for me to start paying attention. Like it seems pretty clear that these these advancements aren't going back in the box. Like this is here to stay. So even if it's not something that any of us intends on, directly using, it's something that we should definitely understand. And so that was why I was excited when you reached out because I think this is going to be fun to talk about. So in your opinion, what I guess what is a why don't we just start with the basic question? What is an AI coding assistant?
Yeah, absolutely. So an AI coding assistant is a tool, could be an extension, could be a standalone piece of software that helps you write code, that helps you be more productive. It helps you answer technical questions. It helps you understand your code better, all with the stated goal or stated purpose of helping you become a much more productive developer. And I totally get your skepticism of getting the code, seeing code auto-completed for you that you didn't write, And a lot of the times, it looks right, or the underlying code is like, oh, I probably would have done it that way, and then you go to run it, and it's like, oh, this method doesn't exist, or what you're trying to do, like, the system completely hallucinated and gave you something that looks kind of right, but in reality, couldn't be further from the facts.
Yeah, it's kind of the like
But
it like hits the uncanny valley of like it's almost plausible, but when you look at it a little closer, you're like, wait, that feels wrong.
Yep, definitely. And I feel like this year, the ChatGPT 3.5 was released like
Hmm.
November of last year, and I feel like over the last 12 months, I mean, we've had like 100 generational breakthroughs in LLM technologies. It feels like every week we're taking another giant leap forward with the LLMs being able to understand better, being able to have better context, better intent. So it feels like, if you step out of the AI game for a couple weeks and come back, everything you thought you knew is completely completely outdated, and there's new stuff to learn, and there's new processes and new ways to do things. And it's very exciting, but at the same time, it can also be a little like, holy crap, I don't blame you for just kind of sitting back and kind of letting it play out, and let the tools get to a really good point before diving in.
Yeah, it just feels like it's been moving so fast. I see what people mean when they talk about like the JavaScript ecosystem having a lot of churn and stress because I'm so in it that I usually don't notice that, right? That I'm like deep in this world and I just see the updates. But AI is not a place where I'm paying attention. It's somewhere that I've been like casually watching, but so far I haven't found any good uses to really bake it into my workflow. And so I'm more of a casual observer and it seems like it's changing so fast that I've sort of just decided like when something important enough happens, somebody that I respect is going to tell me. And until then, I'm just going to kind of let this do its thing in the background.
Well, I'm here to tell you that AI is ready.
No, and so this is sort of one of the things I was interested in talking to you about is like there are a lot of different ways that you can plug AI into different workflows. And so I've talked about with writing, for example, I think a good way to interface with AI is to treat it as a first draft generator, where you're
Mhm.
probably not going to like. I've seen people publish AI copy, and it sounds and feels like AI. It's very like lifeless and boring and whatever. But AI is good at pulling out core concepts and creating an outline that you can write from so that it sounds like a person wrote it, you, uh, but you didn't have to do all of the initial structuring work of thinking through like what are my bullet points, what are the key concepts, et cetera, et cetera. When you're looking at AI in the context of code, how do you fit it into your workflow?
For sure. That is a great question. And on the writing aspect of AI, at the beginning, I've tried to leverage OpenAI's APIs to see if you could build tooling that will give you, 95% ready blog posts, or give you content that you feel pretty confident in publishing. And like you said, it ends up being kind of a little lifeless. It ends up being very, very predictable in a sense. So it's like you can't really use it without having your input. And I think with coding, it's I think that same principle applies. For me, I love using AI coding assistants when I'm onboarding onto a new code base or onboarding onto a new library that I haven't used before, just to kind of ask it some general questions of like, hey, how does this work? Like, what are the key features? How do I get started? Just to get that base level understanding. I come from an educational background, so I've spent a lot of time writing tutorials, writing blog posts, recording videos. And that content is great, but it's always like from my perspective. So, if I put out a tutorial on how to create a Next.js application, it's going to be from my perspective, with my biases of like, I think you should already know, how the directory structure works. I'm not going to cover that. or we're going to be building and integrating this API. But if you're trying to learn, it's better if you can have answers that are tailored to your exact query. If you're trying to integrate a particular API into your next app, you can read my blog post on integrating, Twilio. But if you're trying to integrate SendGrid, it's going to be, completely different. So you either kind of have to put those pieces together yourself, from various different blog posts, from the docs, from, other tutorials, or you can just ask a Code AI assistant to give you the exact steps for your exact use case. And these days, it's getting to a point where, for a majority of use cases, it will, give you a good enough answer to get you to the next step.
Okay. Do you worry that this will, like, I don't want to say this in an inflammatory way, because I don't mean it in an inflammatory way. I mean it in just a general, like, how we learn to do things. But do you think that being able to get that instant answer is going to slow the learning of somebody, because they won't be... But maybe let me say this as an anecdote instead of me trying to make some broad sweeping comment. When I learn, the struggle is usually what makes the knowledge stick, right? And so when I try something and it doesn't work, and then I try something and it does work, I see what the difference was, and it helps lock that lesson into my brain. Do you think that there's a risk that, like, being able to say, I want to do this thing, and it just does that thing, like, do you see it as something that's going to remove that type of knowledge from human developers? And I guess the follow-up question is, do you think that matters?
Great. Both of them are really great questions. And I do. I think, and I agree with you fully. I think the real learning happens in the struggle of trying to figure it out yourself. And if you just kind of get spoon-fed the answer, then you don't, you didn't go through the struggle. You might not, it might not stick as well as if you had, done it yourself, tried 10 different things that didn't work, or pieced the knowledge together yourself. I do agree there that in those instances, if you're like one of my projects that I'm trying to do over the holiday break is really get into Rust and kind of build a couple applications with Rust. And I know a little bit about Rust. I've done like the tour of Rust and things like that. But I've been using Cody for a lot of to kind of fill in the gaps. And I have noticed, coming from a non-Rust background, that I'm relying more and more on the tool to help me solve the issues, rather than kind of having that intuition of, oh, this isn't working, and I kind of have an idea of why it's not working. So let me go dig into it a little bit. Let me try to figure it out on my own. I just open up the Cody chat window and I'm like, hey, this doesn't work, fix it for me. And it's like, oh, you forgot to do this import, or you're, not returning the right type. So to answer that second question, I think it's going to become less and less and less. Maybe you don't need to know exactly how everything works under the hood to be a productive developer, to be a developer in a professional setting. I still think, you should learn as much as possible on your own and be able to read and understand and write code. Absolutely. But if you're trying to move fast and trying to launch an MVP, or get to market faster, if you if you can leverage tools to help you get there, whether it's AI or low code, no code platforms that kind of abstract a lot of the actual code and syntax and algorithms from you, I'm all for it. Let's build some cool stuff, and let's ship, right?
Yeah, I think, and I think the important thing for me, and for anybody who's skeptical of AI, to remember is that this is a tool like other tools, and to say don't use that tool because it'll make you bad at code is kind of like saying don't use a JavaScript framework because it'll make you bad at code. Like abstractions are abstractions, and sometimes we're abstracting things that don't matter. I think the question that I have, and the question that I think we just need to answer as an industry, is like, where is the line for what doesn't matter when you're writing code? And I think, I also think the answer might be different for somebody who enjoys coding versus somebody who needs code to get to whatever the next phase of their plan is. And I think that as we're seeing more and more of the world become dependent on code, it's becoming less important that the code itself is like handcrafted by an expert coder, and more that, I'm a teacher and I want some way for kids to do some project. And if I can code that in a weekend by saying, hey, AI, tell me how to make an app that lets my kids do this, they get that app and the app works well enough. Like, they're not trying to productize it. It's not going out as like a software as a service thing. They were able to do a fun weekend project that made their life a little bit better. And if the code is trash, who cares? Because that wasn't the point. But yeah, it is interesting. It's interesting because it sort of puts what we do into more of a commodity, right? Like, it's like when we shifted from all clothing being handmade and very expensive to most clothing being cheap crap, and then you pay extra for the handmade clothing, and most people don't, right? It does seem like maybe we're going to enter the world of like most code is a commodity. It's not really like a luxury job anymore. And instead you have your like artisan coders for whatever, some specialty thing. But for the most part, you just kind of get your Instagram ad shine crap from an AI, and it doesn't matter because you just needed to solve a problem.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think when I joined initially Sourcegraph, I was talking to the head of product, Chris Sells, and one of the things he told me was, back in the 1970s, 80s, when we were moving from kind of writing code on punch cards and starting to get compiled languages that would convert from C++ code into assembly code. There was a lot of skepticism of, are we going to be able to ever trust a machine to take code that we write, turn it into something else, and then have that run and execute on the processor and be
Right.
accurate. So at the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism. There was a lot of checking to see if the code that was converted from one language to another, like, was it correct? And at the beginning, that sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at now with the AI generated code. It's like we still have to look at it because some of the times it's going to look, it's going to have that uncanny valley effect of it looks right, but when you go to compile it, when you go to run it, it completely crashes.
Mm.
But, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, we might not even care. We might just open up our AI assistant and say, hey, I need an authentication system, a login system. And AI will be at a stage where it can, validate, build, just spit out a login system that we don't even have to check the code for. We're so confident in it that it's following the best practices, it's following, handling all those edge cases, setting up, password resets and, verifications of the accounts. I think, we're still a ways away from that, but I think that's where the future is headed, where, code is going to become more and more commoditized. We're going to more and more processes and algorithms are going to emerge where we can just be, as engineers, as developers, it's going to be on us to get the user experience correct and like build new and novel applications and focus on, the users, focus on the product space more so than what the code looks like, or, is it, are we using tabs or spaces, or is the code using
Mm.
this library or that library? It's going to be more about what does the application do, less so than, what language is it written in? Is it performant? Is it this? Is it that?
It's funny because I spend a huge amount of time telling people like the code doesn't matter. The point is what you're building, and the outcome is that the person you're building for has a wonderful experience that they enjoy using. And despite me saying that a million times, it doesn't fail to make me uneasy when I think about this idea of like we're barreling toward a future where the job that I do that I enjoy is at risk of becoming a like niche specialty because most people won't care or need it. Which is, it is what it is, right? Like that's how things move forward. And I am always curious too, like, is this the sort of thing that will work for the 80/20? Like if I want to build a personal site, great. I can tell AI to build me a personal site. If I want to build the Hilton app for managing remote check-in and stuff like that, AI is probably not going to build that, right? So I do still think to the best of my knowledge, whenever we're generating something net new, we're still going to need people who understand code, right?
Oh,
The
I
other
believe that 100%.
the other question I have, what I'm really curious about as we move into this world, is what does maintenance look like? Like can you tell AI to maintain AI generated code, or are we turning ourselves into like the garbage pile tenders instead of the creators? Like these are my like big philosophical questions as we start talking about this. Like if AI is going to generate all the code, but then it can't maintain its own code, what does that mean for this job? Like, do we become the equivalent of janitors? Like our job is to go clean up after the robots. It's interesting. It's interesting, and I have very complicated feelings about it because I do want to avoid becoming one of those people who's like everything that was invented after I got comfortable is bad, because I think that is a pretty standard progression with humans and technology. And at the same time, maybe some technology is going to cause more problems than it's worth. And how do you know which it's which, right? But
Yeah.
anyways, this wasn't intended to be a big philosophical rant. It does look like your audio desynced again, and I'm not sure
Did it?
what's going on.
Let me.
Take a quick pause here, and
How about now?
yeah, that looks right.
Is it
Yep, we're back in
a little
sync.
better? Okay.
Cool. Okay,
Sweet.
so let's do this. I think I could sit here and talk about this forever, but I'd rather see it in action. So why don't I switch us over into the pair programming mode, and it's going to be this screen here. There we go. All right, and let me first make a quick shout out. Oops, to our captioner. We've got Rachel here from White Coat Captioning, making all of these words into readable words for people who need captions. Thank you for dealing with that extraordinarily clumsy sentence. That's made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify and Vetsu Code kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. Go check out Otto on Twitter while you still can. Here is the link there. And then we are talking about Sourcegraph today, but more specifically, we are talking about Sourcegraph's product called Cody, which is one of the AI assistants. So that is about as much as I know, like what we've talked about. And then I know that Cody is the Sourcegraph flavor of this thing. So if I want to see this in action, I want to learn how this actually fits into my workflow, what should I do next?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give a little bit of background on, how we got to Cody. Like Sourcegraph is a company, we've been around for about a decade now. And, Sourcegraph got its start in universal code search and helping developers at very large organizations search through, hundreds or thousands of different repositories and help developers understand code, find symbols, and so for the first 10 years of our existence, we've been building tools to help developers learn and understand their code, find issues faster, manage batch changes across all of their repos at once. So our roots are really in helping developers understand code, understand their code base. So, building an AI code tool was almost like a natural evolution of our product. In building Cody, we said, let's use all of our graph building knowledge, let's use all of the knowledge that we have helping human developers understand their code and translate that to an AI assistant that could kind of be your, pair programming BFF that can sit there in your extension, in your editor. We don't want you to change your workflow for us. We just want to integrate with what you're already doing. And Cody will just sit back and be available for you when you need it. And when you're just kind of focusing on the hard stuff and you want Cody to get out of the way, it will. But yeah, here you're on our Cody landing page with our slogan, code more, type less. And if you scroll down just a little bit, it kind of has this overview of how Cody works with the multi-line auto-completion. So as you start typing, as you start writing your code, Cody basically works in three different ways. So the first one is that AI assisted autocomplete. So Cody has context of your entire code base, and as you start adding new functions or as you start writing functions or calling methods, Cody will go and find those methods in your code base and make sure that it's passing in the right parameters. It's not hallucinating and thinking about like, hey, you're creating a new person object, they should have these specific attributes. It goes and looks at your type for your person or a class for that person and only imports those specific methods. So that's the first way that people use Cody, using it as an autocomplete tool. The second way is using Cody as a chat, as kind of a pair programming buddy that you can talk to and ask it questions. And again, Cody has context of your entire code base. So when you ask a question of Cody, rather than going to the internet, going to the LLM's training set, and kind of coming up with a generic or kind of a broad technical answer for you, it goes and uses our natural language search to look at your code base, find relevant code snippets that are relevant to the question that you're asking, add those to the request to the LLM, and that helps us give you much more personalized responses for your specific code base, for your specific problem. And just like the autocomplete, it uses the context and the awareness of your code to give you better answers.
Gotcha.
And then the final way that people use Cody is we support a number of built-in commands, as well as we give you the ability to add custom commands. And the way the commands work is they're just kind of an abstraction on the chat interface. So when you exit, like the built-in commands we have are for documenting your code, for explaining your code, running code smells, and generating unit tests. So you can just highlight a piece of code, run a command like generate unit tests or describe code smells, and it's again going to look at the highlighted code as well as context from your entire library, from your entire code base, to see potential issues and improvements that you can make on your code, and then it'll allow you to easily copy and paste those improvements into your editor, into your open file.
Got it. Okay. So I think I'm going to hold my questions until we're actually in a code base here. And I thought that a good code base would actually be the Learn with Jason code base, because if we look in here, I have a bunch of packages and I have a bunch of sites that are all sharing code. There's interconnected stuff. I've got common things going through here. I figured this is about as complex of an app as I have available to me. And And so I think this will be a good way to put it through its paces and understand how we can, make this work. So if I want to make this work, let me get this here. I'm going to open up the Learn with Jason site, and let's close up the windows, and we can open up the Explorer. Okay, so in here, I have all of my sites. So this is, all the different sites that I run out of the Learn with Jason system, and all of the different little helper packages that I have, all running in an NX mono repo. If I want to start using Cody, what should I do first?
Love it. I love the Explorer on the right hand side.
People get salty about this, but this is the truth, man. It look, if I open some code and let's get just a page out here. All right. And then I want to see how that code's not jumping around as I toggle this open and shut. That's a game changer.
You might have converted me. I mean, I go back to the old Visual Studio days where Explorer was on the right by default, and you don't see it as much anymore. But that's actually a really good point.
And that'll be true too when we pull up like a chat window, having it here so that it's not bouncing my code around when we pop it open to ask questions.
Yeah, definitely. So to get started with Cody, you would just install the Visual Studio Code extension. So if you open up the extensions tab and type in Cody AI, it should be one of the first, and there it is.
Okay. So here's Cody AI. I don't need a pre-release or anything. I can use the...
You can use the current, like the main version, and we just went GA last Thursday, so Cody is ready to go. And once the extension is installed, if you open up the extension, it'll just ask you to log in with your Sourcegraph account, and then you'll be good to go.
If I open up the extension, like extension settings?
So by default, Cody is going to be installed on the not on the Explorer window, but kind of the very main window. I forget the name of it. Not like the sidebar.
Oh, do I need to make that visible?
Yeah.
Nope, not that one. You? Nope.
Panel? No. Let's see. I'm trying to find it on my
Minimap.
source control. Is it primary sidebar or?
Well, primary sidebar is open. I don't know what this would even be called. Anybody know what this thing is? Activity bar. Activity bar is what it's called.
Activity
Okay.
bar. So it looks like since you might have had the extension already installed, it looks like you're already authenticated.
Okay.
And ready to go. One thing I would do is hit the upgrade to Pro button. That's gonna take you back to the Sourcegraph site, and also give you unlimited access to Cody up until February. So we went GA last week, but we're giving everybody access to Cody Pro until middle of February for free. We don't require a credit card or anything like that. It's our holiday gift for developers that are coding over the winter break and want to try out Cody. So it's fully free. With the unlimited plan, you get unlimited auto completions, unlimited chats, and like I said, we don't require a credit card or anything. So at the end of the 2 months, it's just gonna kick you back down to the free tier. Or if you are loving Cody and you're getting value out of it, you can then upgrade for $9 a month.
Okay, cool. All right, so I've got this open here, and I am upgraded to Pro, which I don't see the upgrade anymore, so it looks like it took.
Yeah, so you are now ready to go. So with the Cody in the Cody app in the side panel, you can see your commands in the top right. So we talked about those chat, document, smell. Below that, you have the chats panel, which which give you a list of your previous chats if you want to go back and reference them, or you can click the Start a New Chat button icon. Natural language search is the next panel we have, and this is still in beta, and this allows you to search your locally open code base with natural text. So instead of instead of having to know exactly what file you want to open, if you just search for authentication, or it kind of does a fuzzy search to help you find relevant files um, in your code base.
Yeah, so this kind of gets into, it's a little, don't know. I think I'd maybe give it a C- on that search, but
Yeah. Still in beta.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so I guess let's kind of put this through its paces. So the first thing that I think of when I'm in something like this is I'm kind of thinking about, like, all right, I've been given a task, and so I need to, let's say, update the RSS feed for the newsletter. So can I do something like, where are the files that manage the RSS feeds?
So before opening that,
Okay.
or as that query is running, if you click on the little star icon in the chat window, you'll see it highlighted and like pulsing right where you typed in the
Here.
query. And then if you hit that enable embeddings button, that's going to enable the kind of much better enhanced context, and it's going to go ahead and
Okay.
in your entire repo. So you can run it without embeddings, but the context isn't going to be as good as with embeddings. So we always recommend folks generate these embeddings, and with that, it's gonna work much better. And if you've used Cody previously, you had to install like the Cody desktop app, so you no longer have to do that. Everything is done in the Visual Studio Code extension, and generating the embeddings index takes, depending on the size of the repo, it could be 30 seconds to a couple minutes.
Got it. Okay, so question from the chat: is this available for Vim?
It is, yeah. So we support Visual Studio Code, any of the JetBrains IDEs. So if you're a JetBrains person, like you use PyCharm or WebStorm or any of those, you can use it. And we also have experimental support for NeoVim, and we're looking at supporting other IDEs in the future as well.
Okay. So it's NeoVim is the flavor of Vim that you support? Got it. Okay. I thought there was another question in here. Oh, Bridgewater is asking, how well do AI assistants work with Common Lisp, COBOL, Forth, Smalltalk, and then a couple I've never heard of?
Yeah, PLB and RPG4 looks like. So Cody, with Cody, we use both open source and proprietary LLMs. We don't build at the moment any of our own LLMs, so we leverage OpenAI's GPT-4 as well as Anthropic's Claude. And then we also use an open source LLM called StarCoder for the auto completions. And we just added Mixtral when we went GA last week. So um, as long as there was in those training data sets, as long as there were some languages that were that had training data for, then it should work. I always say, Cody works really well if you're using JavaScript, Python, Go, any of the really popular programming languages that are used, that have a lot of open source libraries, that have a lot of open source code. They'll work better. But that's not to say that it's not going to work in those older languages.
Okay, got it. And then does this require you to be online?
It does require you to be online. So, we did some testing initially to see if we could get Cody to run entirely locally with Olama, and like being able to kind of bring your own local LLM and not be connected to the internet. The experience is just very slow because most people, don't have a super powerful GPU to run LLM inference on. So while it does work, it's very, very slow. And our CEO actually has an open PR where you can, if you want to pull it, download it and try it yourself. But it's just not the greatest experience. So we kind of decided to go the online route, where we'll do all of the LLM inferencing and all of the code generation remotely, and then just send it to the client.
Cool, very cool. All right, so we poked in here. I asked it some questions about my RSS feed. It did an okay job. It figured out where the RSS feeds were defined. It didn't find the files that actually generate them, but that's way better than it did without the embeddings. So what are the right things? What should we be looking at? What are the, wait, why does it say the embeddings are incomplete?
Oh. Looks like we might have had a timeout issue.
Continue. Cody gateway request failed. Did I get logged out or something? Or get rate limited, or?
You shouldn't have gotten rate limited. Maybe if you close out VS Code and reopen it, just in case when you upgrade it to Pro, if there was any sort of funky issue.
Okay, here, try again.
And then if we...
It does not like me. What if I cancel?
What if you hit the embeddings, that little star icon in the chat again, and see if the embeddings are there?
It says it's indexed, but then it says it's not fully indexed.
Let me see here, because I have your Learn with Jason project cloned locally on my
What the hell? Why does this have me hooked up as my old dead IBM account? That's weird. Let's see. I don't... Yeah, is there anywhere that I can go to, like... if I turn these off and then back on again, do you think it'll work?
It might. But... Maybe a permissions issue from signing in a long time ago. Yeah, I'm wondering if it is an issue with authentication. But if you'd like, I can share my screen, and I have the same exact repository with the full embeddings, so we could.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we do that? So I'll take my screen off, and I'll look for yours.
Okay, let's see. And share screen. And share. So now I'm actually running into that same issue. Cody embeddings index is only 42% complete. So I'm
Oh,
actually
no.
gonna take a screenshot of this.
Did we get the ill-fated, like, we're doing a demo and now we're having an outage?
Doing it live, right? Well, let's see. I'll keep trying to see if this one, if we can still do it with 42% embeddings complete. The joys of doing a live demo, right? So I guess we
Love
can
the
even
live
switch back
demo.
to your screen, since I guess we're running into the same issue. But I'd rather have you
Oops, this one,
play
and then
around
I
with
need to
Cody
get over
and
to. No, not that either. This one. Sheesh. Okay.
there we go.
All right. So,
So, like I said, like one of the first things that I typically do when opening up a new repository that I'm not familiar with is, I ask Cody what does this application do, or like what is this application, to just kind of get a general sense of, where I'm at. Just kind of help me figure out, am I in the right place? What can I expect from this application? And typically what this is going to do is it's, going to try to find a README file, try to interpret it, and give a summary of the high-level features for the application. So it's telling us here that this is a mono repo built with NX that contains multiple sites, a Remix site, an Astro site, a Sanity Studio project. Tells us a little bit about the tech stack and instructions for how to set up a local dev environment, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of stuff that you could probably get from the README if you read the whole thing. But I always like kind of getting the brief and quick summary of the project. And would you say that answer was along the lines of how you would explain Learn with JSON.dev?
I'm confused where it's getting this, because it's not a Remix site. I wonder. Also, am I the only one who has this? Like the days since we had to manually deploy button? Yeah, because we don't have any Remix code in here. Does it have Remix code out here?
Huh.
Does it maybe say that this is a Remix site out? Oh, look at this. Okay, so it just read the README. It didn't read the code.
Interesting.
So this
I'm
is
curious,
like it summarized this.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you ask it, if you ask Cody how to, like, ask it more about Remix, like a Remix question in the code base, or how to launch the Remix portion of the site, if it's going to hallucinate, or if it's going to say, hey, you actually don't have any Remix. So, we need to build some of these sites.
This is interesting. I'm honestly, I'm like pretty pumped to see how this handles all of this. Move this over here. so that I can see what's going on. Whoops, nope, you go over here. Stream demons.
Stream demons.
Okay, so it says... All right, so it's got correct information. Like this is the correct, well, that's not the correct command. So that should be www dev. Is it only pulling out of the README? It's only pulling out of the README. I think it's not seeing the, so, you know, this is incorrect code. Like my thing is out of date here, but it doesn't seem to be catching the actual like source code of what's going on.
So one thing you could do is if you go into the chat panel when you ask that question, it will it'll actually tell you the context that it read. So you can see that we looked at an MDX file, the package.json file, the index.html, and
when it looked at like the wrong, so this is the package JSON for sanity. So yeah, like it's interesting because it's definitely trying, but it seems to be grabbing interesting choices.
Definitely. And I think it might be because, you know, you have multiple different sites in this monorepo. But again, I think it should do a better job here. One thing you could do is Cody also supports kind of bringing in specific files. So if you, in the chat window, if you start with the @ symbol, then you can say, use this particular file for context. So if you just said like, you know, package.json, like the main one, and then asked it, how do I start this application? It should limit, it should give a much more accurate response because it's going to get context from that particular file as kind of like the main one. But let's see. I love the comment of who updates readmes. You could use Cody for it.
Okay, so this looks like what I wrote, which makes me believe that it read the README again. Where did it get that from?
I also wonder if not having the full embeddings 100% complete is...
I have a suspicion that's part of what's going on here because it was aware that it was an NX site, but it's not like using that. So it didn't pick up on the fact that this is an NX site when I told it to check in here. And honestly, this could be just maybe mono repos aren't going to be usable with a coding assistant because there's too many parallel contexts, and there's like, you know, I would have to know so much about the mono repo to tell the robot not to include certain contexts that at that point I don't need the robot anymore. And you know, who knows? Like it's really hard to say when you get into these different use cases. Like LLMs are very good at gathering context. They're not always great at understanding which context is relevant. And if we're saying use this repository as the relevant information, when does it, you know, if I'm talking about like show me stuff in the blog, how does it know what the blog is, right? Is it actually, I mean, maybe that's a question to ask. So we can say, can you show me how the blog works? on this site. Context limit reached.
Oh, so if you open up a new chat window and ask the question, it'll because each chat gives you just kind of like with ChatGPT, it uses the context of your previous chats in it kind of keeps the conversation going, so you don't have to keep asking. If you're having a conversation, you don't have to keep giving it full context. It's going to pull from previous questions and responses.
Got it. Oh, this is good. This is okay. So this is great. This is accurate. All these pieces are correct. And yeah, this is dope. Oh, I thought it would let me click on these to jump to them.
Oh, not yet, but good feedback for our engineering team.
This is cool though. Like this. So this is doing what we want. And I feel like this is kind of a, hey, welcome to the code base sort of set of questions. Where I think it gets really interesting is when we start digging into like something more specific. So let's get into, say, one of these and say, like, can I have it just explain this function?
Mm-hmm.
What just happened?
So
This is like running a demo.
if you go back to that index.ts file and highlight the entire function code and then run the explain command. I think it might have lost.
Failed to create comment. Failed to create command. No active text editor found.
So with this, I think it's losing context when you close the file out. So if you keep the file open,
Okay, let's try again.
yeah, because of that explain command, it like had no context, so it's just getting some totally random. Okay, right now we're
Oh, here we go.
explaining.
The purpose of the load all episodes function is to fetch all published episodes from a sanity data set and return them in a formatted response. Has an options object that allows you to include related episodes, include transcript, or whether or not to use a CDN. Calls a sanity fetch function. Fetches all episodes where hidden as false. Okay. It doesn't. This is a little bit of a like word salad because that's these fields are abstracted up here.
Uh-huh.
And then let's see what else. Sorted by date, including all published fields. Can it figure out Grok?
It should. Let's see.
Oh. Where's my load all episodes? Here. This is good. This is good. Okay.
All right.
Constant defines common fields is as well as the YouTube data links and related episodes. That looks like it's kind of getting confused there. The order by date descending sorts the returned episodes with newest first. Good. This is good. Yeah, this little summary is actually kind of great. I like it. So,
Yes,
and this is like where I would see these coding assistants really being useful is like if I've never used Grok before, having something that can say like, this is what that order, the order at the end means sorting the returned episodes. Because this is kind of, if you've never seen this before, this is weird, right? Like Grok, and Grok is one of those like, the Sanity team it literally lived that XKCD meme where they were like, there are 14 competing standards. I know, let's create a 15th. But this is, I get this. This makes sense to me.
Yeah, and this type of explanation I think is very valuable, especially when you're onboarding to a new code base. And for me, it can be very easy to get overwhelmed with, the team. That there are standard conventions of how you write code, how stuff is structured. But I feel like every team does it slightly different. Has certain conventions, like certain parameters they pass in, certain ways of defining functions or defining how those functions behave. So having something like Cody, select that function and be like, hey, give me an ELI5 of how this actually works, and giving me the correct answer, and hopefully it's the correct answer, is really gives you a leg up of kind of helping piece together the bigger puzzle of how this application is actually meant to work, where it's going to be used, and how it's going to, how you can leverage it.
Yeah, for sure. Question from Linda. As you use Cody more in a specific code base, does it learn a bit and understand the structure better?
So the more code you have in a code repository, the better the context will be. So if you're kind of starting out like a brand new project, and let's say it's an Astra application or a Next application, by default, it's going to look at best conventions for a Astra or best conventions for a Next.js application. But as you start adding, more and more files, more and more pages, more and more of your, utility helper functions or your implementation details, then, I'll say quote unquote, it's going to learn your style of coding and what your application does and kind of tailor itself to that more so than kind of just general, Next or Astra or whatever library framework you're using. So in that case, it's gonna learn, but
it's not like it starts with the context of whatever the embeddings are, and those embeddings don't shift except when you change the code.
Exactly.
So it's not like if you ask it the same question 3 times, the third answer would be better because it's got practice or whatever. It's starting with the same baseline information every time. And it's not like an evolving system or anything.
Right. At the moment, it is not, but who knows? Maybe in the future, it'll continuously evolve, and you can use different different LLMs. Like one of the things that we're really standing behind is giving the user choice on which LLM they want to use. So if you open up a new chat window, I can kind of show you how that works. So at the top, you see by default, Claude 2.0 is our default LLM, but you can use 2.1, Claude Instant, GPT 3.5, or Mixtral. So any of these LLMs, based on which one you use, you're going to get a slightly different response because some LLMs are, work better with code generations, others work better with explanations, and rather than locking you into, we think, Claude is the best, so we want you to just use Claude. We want to give you the option of, finding an LLM that is most suited for your use case. And as we move into the future, I'm sure there's going to be specific LLMs that are just trained on JavaScript or just trained on Go or Rust that are much better at dealing with Rust code or Go code, or different sets of programming challenges, different sets of problems that you're trying to solve. So we don't want to lock you into an LLM. We want to give you the option of choosing the best LLM for the job that you're trying to do or solve.
Got it. So for somebody who has no idea what this means, which would be me, what is the difference here? Is there anything that I'm going to notice as a user other than the answers are a little bit different?
As a user, the only thing you will notice that's different is the answer. So I always, like, if I ask a question and the answer isn't up to par, up to what I expect, usually I'll switch an LLM, switch to a different LLM and see if I get a better answer, if I get a better solution, and if not, then I kind of try to rephrase my query or rephrase how I'm asking the question, because then it's it might be me, I might not be giving it enough context personally to give me a good enough answer. So yeah, at the moment, the difference between the LLMs is, I don't want to say it's minimal, but it definitely, like, it's kind of transparent to the user, whether you're using GPT-4 or Claude 2.1. The answers should still be fairly similar, but the one thing that I think I've heard our engineering team talk about is that Claude 2.0 does much better at giving you kind of those, explain like I'm five, or giving you textual responses, whereas GPT-4 does a little better in giving you code generation. So if you ask it to write me a piece of code or update a function to do XYZ, the code generation aspects are going to be a little bit better with GPT-4 at the moment. At least that's what we found.
I think it's funny because what you were just talking about with like the, phrasing the question or whatever is, and Linda's saying here, you got to learn to phrase your prompts well. My favorite thing is that all of engineering has been this idea, like this struggle toward eliminating meetings, eliminating the need to talk to other people. And in the effort to do that, what we've made the pinnacle of skill is good communication skills. And I find that very ironically heartwarming.
I couldn't agree more.
All it took was robots to teach the nerds to finally talk about communicating clearly.
But at the moment, it definitely is. You have to ask the right prompt, you have to ask the right question to get the right response. But I'm hoping in the future, as somebody that loves a good user experience, like, I don't want to put that on the user. I don't want to tell you what question you have to ask or how you have to phrase it to get a response. We should be.
I mean, I think but I think no matter what, we're never going to make the AI into mind readers, right? And so I think that it does point to the idea that for us to be able to ask questions that will get us to answers, we're still going to have to understand what's happening. Like, you're never going to be able to say, like, hey, AI, make me a profitable business. And it's just going to go and do that. And then later you can say, AI, we're profitable, but we need more profit, make it more profitable. And it's just going to do that. Like, you're still going to have to understand things. You're going to have to know how things work. You're going to have to be able to ask clear questions and provide clear direction. You're not replacing your need to think or communicate. You're just changing who you're thinking and communicating with, right? Like, if you were the employer of a bunch of employees, you would also have to think about what you want done, understand the space that you're trying to solve, and then clearly communicate to your employees exactly what you want them to do and like what the parameters are for success, right? Taking that into the context of AI, it's going to be exactly the same, where you still have to know what you want, have a clear vision of what the outcome looks like, and communicate that in a way that a robot can interpret and deliver on with a clear definition of done. Like, I think this, as with all solutions, this isn't a magic bullet. And the hardest problem with all of technology is being able to clearly articulate a vision of what you want to happen. It doesn't matter what the tool is, right? And so for anybody who's thinking, finally I'll be able to work without all these people who keep me from getting stuff done, surprise, now you've got a slightly dumber person in the form of an AI that needs much clearer instructions for you to do the thing that you want done. So remember, nerds, you still got to talk, still got to think, still got to communicate, still got to clarify.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a good segue into kind of trying out another feature of Cody, which is editing code.
Sure.
And instead of doing the autocomplete, one of the ways that I find myself editing code a lot is I will highlight a function and run the Cody edit command, which will basically open up a prompt window asking you, what do you want to change about this code? So if you have a function that you're dying to update or change in any way, this is a pretty cool demo. So with the edit command, and this is kind of where you were talking about, giving it clear and concise commands, you'll get a much better response. But here you just provide the instructions for it, and the better the instructions, the better the update. But you can even be vague, and it'll still try to infer what you're trying to do.
Okay, so we'll say update this code to use valid TypeScript that will pass strict type checks, because I didn't write this to be TypeScript. And this should be a little bit of a gimme, right? Like, this is pretty straightforward. Oh, it wrote bad code.
So let's see.
So this was right, but then it also added the types here, which aliased them all and got duplicate declarations and everything. And then down here, these will be never declared.
I see.
So
you could try.
This is what we would need in order for that to work. But now it is valid TypeScript. So it got close.
Close.
Again, uncanny valley.
But that's the thing, right? Because you are a TypeScript developer, you work with TypeScript, you could very easily see what's wrong and fix it. But it's, as a new developer, like if I was brand new to TypeScript and I asked it to do that and it gave me these errors, I would be like, well, that's, what am I doing wrong? Where do I go next? Like, what is happening here?
Let's follow up. Why doesn't this code work?
Let's see.
Nope. You'd look at the post to Shopify. Thank you. Okay, so this missed entirely, like not even close.
So
Didn't get anywhere near the types, which are the only problem with this code.
Yep, I see it. Wonder if you ask it. And I was going to ask previously if you undo what you did with the code, and rerun that edit function to make it valid TypeScript code. There is the option to retry because it gives you multiple options.
Okay.
So I'd be curious to see if it would eventually get it right.
Okay, that will pass a strict type check. It's also doing something super weird with my white space. See this? It's like mixing.
Tabs and spaces, it looks like.
Okay, so it missed this. Let's retry. Make sure the code actually works.
I read a, what was it? It was Mashable, or might have been a different site. I published an article last week saying that if you offer to tip your Code AI assistant in the prompt, that it tends to get the answers right more of the time. So another way that tipping culture has gotten completely out of hand.
When it gets a working Venmo, that's when I'm going to be really concerned. It just pops up a QR code. Okay, so apparently insulting it worked. And no, so it did the thing, right? Like that is good. And as far as I can tell, it didn't. Did you change something else? Did I change that? Does this? Interesting. I don't know if this was already changed or not. Either way, this is cool. This did what I expected it to do. Good that second try worked. I guess telling it to make sure the code works is good. But that's like, this is useful. I think it does highlight pretty quickly that this isn't the sort of thing that, like, if you don't understand your code, you can just set this loose and roll. Like, you're still going to have to understand how this works, at least for the near future. Like, these are going to continue to improve. The work that's being done now is significantly more impressive than the coding work that I saw done a year and a half ago, right? So I can't imagine it's not going to look entirely different in another year and a half. But today, you need to be it's just like the automatic driving. If you actually let the car drive itself, you're going to kill somebody. So you have to be in the driver's seat and attentive the whole time, right? So I think this is the same thing. It is cool. I like that it at least got me directionally where I wanted to go, right? In a way that I knew how to do that. It's cool that it typed it for me. And I can see that being really useful. Actually, what if I want to like do a new function? Okay, so let me think of an example of something that I write all the time. I need to write a utility function that will take a number out of a database and format it as currency. If I want to have Cody generate that for me, do I do that by writing a comment? Do I do that in the chat? Like, what's the right way to go about this?
So you could do it both ways. But one way you could do it is you can open up a new chat window and, kind of give it instructions and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I need. Or what you can do is add a comment, or even just start writing the function in your open file. Give it the function parameters and see if Cody can infer from the function name.
Let's go amount and currency code. Do I have to tell it to do something?
Nope. So usually you just wait a second and the autocomplete should, if you hit enter and then just wait like half a second, it should start.
It's entirely possible that I manually disabled this. So where would I find this in the settings?
So in the Cody settings, if you open up the Cody settings button and then code autocomplete. Okay, so now if you, there we go.
Oh, whoops. International number. Oh, wait, you were almost there. What happened?
Oh, I think you hit a button to like cycle through the options. So if you just redo it, it'll maybe one more new line, just so it's.
That'll do it. So then we would just need to refactor this and say, what did I want to do? I wanted to edit the code. Edit the code. Refactor this into valid TypeScript. Make sure the code actually works. That's going to become my superstitious addition to every code prompt.
You can actually in the settings that there is an option to add a pretext or text after each prompt that's automatically injected. So maybe we could just create a JSON mode where it is, adds a string that says make sure it actually
Just
works.
a light insult to the computer every time you use it. Oh, somebody asked a question about my sweater. This sweater was a gift from the Slack team. You can see. It's fun. I'm happy with it. Thanks, Slack. Okay, so there we go. It took a little bit of work. Again, it's not gonna do your job for you. You still got to pay attention, but this is pretty slick. It wrote the code for us. It refactored the code into TypeScript, and for a utility function like this, I've written this code 1,000 times. I don't need to write it myself. It's pretty great to have the robot remember like all of these bits and the specific names of things. That's helpful.
I would be curious if you delete that function in its entirety and just add a comment saying create a function, a TypeScript function that converts currency, and then just hit enter and give it a second. Will it give you the full solution?
Why are you commented?
So maybe just start with like export. Like typing export and then
Pretty close, yeah, same.
currency USD. Okay, so this one, instead of allowing you to select the type of currency, just defaulted to USD.
There, that does it.
Boom.
So I just had to add that the currency was passed in. So,
Yeah. And
again,
I think
clear
that's
communication is going to be the secret to all of these.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the more direct you, and I guess that also begs the question of, if I spend as much time clearly communicating what I want, like, is it faster for me to, type it out in natural language and let the computer autocomplete it for me? Or if I know exactly what I'm doing and it's a function like this, is it faster for me to just type out the code? And I guess that's a question to be, it's like a personal personal choice.
And I think it definitely, it depends on where you are in your code base and like whether or not you remember the exact name of the thing. One of the things that gets me frequently is that on something like this, I always forget that the parent object is called intl. Like I just forget that it's there, right? So I know what it is, but I end up Googling like format currency, and then I find intl, and then I remember how it works. But it's not like, it doesn't stick in my memory. So in that case, this was faster than me having to quickly Google what the name of this class is. And so that, these are places where I can see this being really useful. Even if what this spits out is like not exactly what I want, this was the time savings. This saved me 30 seconds of a quick Google. And now I can add this, this helper or whatever to make this work. I think like for me at least, what I hope this lands on, and judging from what we saw today, where I think we are today, and probably for at least a little while into the foreseeable future, is it is a tool that augments a functional developer. Like, I don't think this is something that's going to make it possible for somebody who does not code to successfully code an entire app from scratch. And I think that if we treat it like a tool, like we treat IntelliSense, like we treat TypeScript, like we treat all of our testing libraries, then it augments us and makes us better. It helps us catch errors. It helps us go a little bit faster. It helps us abstract some of the crap that we don't want to deal with. But we have to treat it like that. We can't treat it like something that's going to do our job for us, because it won't. It's going to make a huge mess if it's left unattended, as we saw. It wrote broken code 2 out of 3 times.
And I will say, my wife just started her learning to code journey, and she was gonna use Cody to help her. And I think that this, really shows that, for now, these tools are great, but they're great in the right hands. If you are a professional developer, if you just want to use them to help you be a bit more productive, to help you do some of the, tedious, boring stuff that, just so you're not writing API calls over and over again. Like, once it knows how you write API calls, it'll do it. But as my wife was kind of starting her programming journey, she wanted to build a water tracker. So she opened up Cody and was like, hey, build me a water tracker app. And it spit out a bunch of Python code. And it's like, here's how you do it. And then she calls me and she's like, hey, it gave me this code. Like, what do I do with it? And I'm like, you have to run it. And she's like, how? So it definitely, I think Cody can help you as a developer that is trying to learn, but I kind of goes back to what we were discussing earlier. You can't fully rely on it to do the work for you. You have to learn the fundamentals, you have to learn the basics, and the more you know, the more you'll be able to leverage the tool.
Yeah. I also just wanted to show one other thing that I think is a huge benefit of these tools is, like, if you're looking at a piece of code for the first time and you're not 100% sure why somebody would use it, like especially when things have terrible names, asking something that has the context of the rest of the code base to show you example usage is huge, because you can see here, like, okay, so you pass in these numbers, you pass in a currency code, and you get out something like this, right? Like, this is huge and so useful, because otherwise you have to, like, run the code broken, console log, and see what comes out, right? And it's, again, can you do it on your own? Absolutely. Is it way faster to do it like this? Yes. Do you need to be able to verify that this isn't actively lying to you? Also, yes. But with that, we are out of time. The time flew. This was super fun. So, Otto, let me get us over to here, and I'm going to kick to your Twitter one more time. I'm going to give everybody a link to Cody, which is currently available Pro until February, so that if you want to try this, now is the right time to do so. This is the code base we were playing around, and I don't know if anybody really wants to go in there. It's Here Be Dragons. But also, make sure that you're checking out things on the site while you are doing stuff. So this episode, like every episode, was live captioned. We've had Rachel here from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Rachel. That's made possible through the support of Netlify and Vetsu Code. Thank you so much. And this week we've got 2 episodes. So on Thursday, Mark Texan is joining us. We're going to talk about Angular. There is a lot of new and exciting stuff going on in the Angular world, so don't miss this one. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. And please make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, you got to do the subscribe, do the like button, share it with your friends, because that's how people find out about this show, and that's what lets me keep making them. So it's free. Click the buttons. Thank you. I appreciate it. Otto, any parting words before we call this one done?
No, thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for lending us a repo to play around with, and going through some of the demos. I know The demo gods were not with us today.
They were
but,
half with us.
They were 42% of the way with us. But yeah, if you like Jason said, Cody is free to use right now. The pro tier gets you unlimited auto completions, unlimited chats through February. So if you want to download it, give it a shot. It works for VS Code, any of the JetBrains IDEs, or NeoVim, and you can even ask it how to exit NeoVim, which is the only question I would ask.
That's very funny.
But no, this was really fun. Thank you, Jason, and I hope everyone has a great day.
All right. Thanks a lot, y'all. We will see you next time.